Welcome back to the podcast. We are here with Max Traylor, who coaches consultants and strategy teams to productize their services. He is the host of the interview show Beers with Max. He's authored the book Agency Survival Guide: How to Productize Consulting Services and Do Other Things Better Too. You can find him at maxtraylor.com. And I really highly suggest that as this interview is ramping up, you have that web page open in a browser tab, because I just clicked on it about 2 minutes ago and I was immediately engaged, sucked in, intrigued, entertained. So we're going to have a fun conversation. So Max, glad to be talking to you.
Thrilled to be here. Thanks for the wonderful intro.
Well, you're very welcome. And so what I liked about just my very first impression of you, seeing about 30 seconds of what it is that you're doing, is you very quickly bring up a problem. You introduce a story, you kind of have a little bit of what not to do. Instead of just giving us the facts, giving us the details, you give us something intriguing. So tell me some things. Tell me about what has you intrigued, what has you passionate, what's your current focus? What is the problem we're solving today?
Well, at a very young age, I realized that my father was different than all the other dads. He was home all the time. And so he became like the cool dad. We went to Disney World all the time. And I walked into his office. He tells this story because I don't remember it, but I walked into his office when I was 5 years old and I asked him, "Dad, where do you make the money?" And he had to explain to me that he thought I thought he was printing money. And so he explained to me that that was illegal, but that he had a digital scalable residual business model. And what that basically meant is he did something once and got paid forever. And so the lesson to my 5-year-old business self was to put your personal life first and build a business that works around your personal life and not the other way around. And I think that is the biggest problem in our society today. And I think that it's a really interesting and fun time because magically the entire world was exposed to their own ability to run their own thing. And we're seeing the largest shift from corporate America to independent consultants and people starting their own businesses. And I think it's a hell of a time.
And I agree with you completely that it is. I mean, I think that you and I, we have those great uncles or those grandparents who they got a job working at the gas station at age 18 and they worked until age 65. And that's all they really had to worry about. But then times have changed. And the downside to the old way of working was that you kind of worked yourself to death and you didn't have fun. Sort of like you're mentioning there, you don't get to build your business or your income around your lifestyle. But now in this modern age with medical advances and all those sorts of things, we will be living to 100. We will be changing careers. There is this miracle, this magic of remote work where you can work anywhere. If you don't like the career you're in, if you don't like the side hustle or whatever you have going on, you can ditch that and change that. And so what do people need to know? Because it sounds a little bit scary, first of all, right? That there's all this upending chaos. But then there's sometimes that thinking of like, well, what do I need to do to get to that lifestyle that your dad had that you mentioned? Because for a lot of people, it's like, well, how do I get there? What in practical terms do I need to do? So tell us what we need to know about, scaling and taking some action.
Well, I guess the first thing, my grandfather always said, you have to know the territory. So, we're either selling knowledge or we're selling things. And I think a lot of people that are just getting out of corporate America and doing their own thing find themselves in the consulting space. They're selling knowledge. And the key to a lifestyle is to be able to charge a price premium, meaning that you're charging more than just you're not trading time for dollars in a way where you're going to be price shopped against the next person. You are able to charge for the time that you're not working. Instead of trading your time, you are charging for a lifetime of accumulated knowledge. You're charging for access to that. And so for people just getting started, they need to realize that this is a complete game with zero rules. If you are charging for something that is perceived as valuable and difficult to replace, then you can charge whatever you want. And I'm convinced that you can sell anything to anyone at any price 1 out of 5 times. What holds people back is their limiting beliefs.
Oh, okay.
That's
Well,
what I have to say about that.
well, I had to let that sit for a second and think and sink in. So you're saying that we need to have something that is valuable, difficult to replace, and you also threw in there a little bit of it being a numbers game. Like you said, it's you're not going to hit the home run every time. It'll be like that 1 out of 5 times where you make that happen. And so to kind of get our heads wrapped around that, do you have any interesting stories, case studies, any like journeys to take us on here about how you've done it or you've helped other people kind of make this shift from, as you said, trading time for dollars, race to the bottom, into maybe having more of a boutique uniqueness, more like slowpreneur kind of lifestyle? What do you have?
Well, it accidentally happened to me. When I started running a marketing agency, professional services business, my dad thought that I was never listening as a kid. It was the exact opposite of digital, scalable, residual. And the worst part was when we hit our goals, and they were usually aligned with, some revenue number or an amount of new clients, my life got worse. Dark circles under the eyes. My wife, now girlfriend at the time, was worried about me. But then I found strategy, and we had a really interesting opportunity at the agency I was running to work with or to speak with 30 clients all at once. And it kind of broke the system because we didn't have the people to service and provide the services that we were doing for 30 clients. The only thing we could do for them was to give them a plan, strategy, thinking. And so we created a plan that we could use with all of those clients, basically a big Mad Lib. We created a workshop and some operating procedures to make it super efficient. And day one, we were charging $2,500. By day 30, we were charging $30,000, and we had positioned it as a content strategy for higher education. So we learned a bit about how to position your knowledge and charge a premium for it. But that was a case where we invented something. We didn't do anything. We were just charging for the plan. It was a 5-hour process, and we were able to take the price point from $2,500 to $30,000 because it was perceived as indispensable knowledge. It was intangible. You couldn't price shop it, and the value was all in the eyes of the client. It didn't take very long for us to figure out that we could train other people how to do that. So we took our processes, we took our templates, and we licensed it to other agencies all around the world. All of a sudden, I was being woken up in the middle of the night to agencies on the other side of the planet that were using our intellectual property, the 30-page Mad Lib that we created, and a little workshop. And we were getting paid 20% of all the work that they were doing. They would charge the $20,000 and we'd get paid 20% just because we owned the intellectual property. That changed my life, ruined agency life for me. I left the agency very shortly after that, but it taught me that strategy is a really fun place to be because you can charge whatever you want for it. And that if you can create a product, a tangible solution out of your knowledge, then there's a lot of fun, scalable revenue streams that you can play with.
I agree. There's like that amount of like there's the leverage aspect where you don't, like you said, you don't have to trade the time for dollars. You can just figure out this plan, and then others can implement the plan for you. And you mentioned earlier that there are these limiting beliefs, right? And that people say things like, well, how do I know if I've stumbled on the magic where I can go from $2,000 to $3,000? Or there's a limiting belief of, how do I talk to enough people? Or how do I build the list, get the traffic, run the ads? So when you share stories like this, and someone says, let me poo-poo on what you just told me, and someone says, I can't do it for this, and this reason, what are the usual objections you hear?
Yeah, well, the objections, a typical objection is my clients won't pay that much. Oh, you want me to double my prices, Max? My clients won't pay for it. The only problem with that is that I just ask them, okay, well, when was the last time you tried? Most people listening to this have not attempted to raise their prices at all in the course of their entire career. So I've got a policy. If you get a yes, double the price. If you get a no, get 4 more no's, then split the difference. Because the reality is, no doesn't mean no. No means we need to have an in-depth conversation about how we get to yes. No is the start of a really valuable conversation of where the money's coming from, what they really see value in, So during when you're bringing on a new client, if you get a yes, you don't learn anything. You just know that you were leaving money on the table.
That's huge. That's powerful. And I think we've all been in that situation where we got the yes and it felt like it happened too fast, or you felt like I don't know, I could have gotten more for what I did, or I could have like added more to the package and also increased the price and kind of not had to scramble for the next client after that. And so these are all interesting things to be thinking about.
Well, sorry, I think my 3-year-old just slammed into my office door. Maybe wasn't looking, but you made a good point there. You said, add things to the package so I can raise my prices. The other limiting belief is that activity equals value. So if I want to make the thing more valuable, if I want to raise my prices, I need to add things to it. When in reality, clients appreciate simplicity. Clients appreciate the having to do one thing and not 5. Not to mention, it's a heck of a lot easier to take action on a plan that recommends you do one thing and not 30 or 40 things. So I always encourage people to interview your clients, figure out what they find least valuable, and take that out of what you're doing and raise the price.
Interesting. Addition by subtraction. And you're reminding me of all these kind of things that I've had to unlearn over the years, and I'm still not super great about it. But I was even telling my wife yesterday that I had a sales call and I was presenting to someone this one package, and my wife said, why didn't you offer this, or why didn't you say that? And I said, because they didn't ask for it, because I was more in the mindset of asking questions, figuring out what they wanted, and kind of working together to coming to an answer. And you're making me think back to when I was younger. I had the problem of info dumping, right? I would say I could do this, and then it just added this complexity. And the answer was, I don't even know what I'm looking at. And so kind of along those lines, since we're talking about like simplifying, taking things out to make it more of a direct path, can you tell us about any like mistakes such as this that you've made, or things that maybe we could learn from, as far as you doing it the hard way and you maybe showing us the shortcut of like, don't do this, avoid that?
Don't wait for your best clients to show up. You got to go get them. If you're not staring at a list of your next 40 ideal customers, you're doing it wrong. Because the most powerful question in business, once you figure out what you want to do, and I suggest that you figure out one thing that you want to do, not a menu of services, not hello, Mr. and Mrs. Client, what would you like today? You're not a waiter. Figure out what your best, most powerful and valuable strategic process, and do that and only that. You might have to call it something different for people to buy it, but do one thing. After you figure that out, the most important question is, who is going to pay you the most? Because it's all perceived value. The money you make has nothing to do with what you do. It has to do with who you're selling to, who you're working with, what they perceive the value to be. So my biggest mistake was not being aggressive and intentional about my sales pipeline sooner. I've been doing it for 6 years now. And it probably took about 2 years for me to get really understand the numbers and what I had to do so that I always have a surplus of clients. But for years, I did the marketing thing. I created content and I waited for my best clients to show up, and clients showed up, but my best clients didn't show up. And I left a lot of money on the table and worked for a lot of people that really represented an opportunity cost. So that was a big lesson, is you really get serious about who you want to work with, and say no to a lot of deals that don't fit that criteria.
And so you're making me think that of there was a situation a few months ago where there was a little bit of like an 80-20 problem, where I had these 2 problem clients that were they were the source of all my anger, frustration, sucking up all this time. And I had to do this hard decision you're mentioning of just like firing these clients, because it wasn't worth it. It wasn't working out. And so this whole idea of finding your ideal clients, having this list of your dream customers. Some people talk about it, but it feels like one of these concepts where it's often a cliche, but not really like explained very much in practical terms, where people say things like, well, have a customer avatar, but then you don't see them doing the things you're mentioning of actually going out and contacting these people. So as far as this list of ideal clients, where does it come from? Is it some combination of like your existing customers or people you see in the marketplace? Or when you say, ideal clients, ideal customers, where do we begin to brainstorm this list?
Well, you begin with your best customer today. Begin with your best customer, go on to their LinkedIn profile, and then get on the phone with somebody that really likes doing research. And those people are out there. And you give them that profile and say, find me 10 more. That's it. That's all you got to do. Maybe it costs you $100. They'll do some hours of study, and they'll come back, and you'll start to see the patterns in what you can publicly identify about people that says that they will make for a great customer, a friend, somebody that you can connect with. There's a lot of information out there on the internet. But I do it all by hand. I don't do any of it, but I have researchers that research around the clock and consistently find me my best customers. And each quarter I do some experiments. I say, I want to talk to a pocket of people that I've never spoken to before, maybe agency owners that have financial backgrounds, because what I do has a good financial value proposition. I learned that agency owners that have creative backgrounds, I can't really have a business discussion with them, so it's not worth talking to them. Well, it is worth talking to them, but not at the cost, not at the opportunity cost of talking with agency owners that have financial backgrounds or business backgrounds or have run and sold their own business before. All those things you can't just create a list. You have to have human beings interpreting what they're seeing on their websites and on their profiles, but it's worth it.
And this kind of person is called a LinkedIn researcher?
Just any researcher.
Okay.
Anyone will do it. Not a lot of people are running around saying I'm a researcher. And yet there's a lot of people out there doing research for money.
And this is an interesting idea here that you're saying, well, look at, and it's almost like a lookalike audience, but done by hand and done on LinkedIn. And this is an interesting idea because you're saying, well, instead of jumping into some new profession that I know nothing about or some new type of person, I already have this best customer. So I already have maybe a little bit of a rough case study. I already can talk a little bit of the lingo. There's probably a ton of just invisible factors of ways that it kind of excites you working on their business. And for some reason you work well together. So why try to reinvent the wheel? And so you're saying, and then, so I also like your the way you phrased it there, with you're saying, I want to talk to a pocket of customers, and that's kind of sometimes a little bit of a brain messer upper. Is that you're thinking, well, how wide or how deep do I need to go? Right? Do I go deep on like 10 people, or do I need to overload my schedule and talk to 100 prospects? So when you say I want to talk to a pocket of customers, does that mean for you like 10 people this month or 20 people this month? Because there's always that issue of when we say, I know I need to get myself out there, I need to do like a little bit of a short burst. What is a good size or a good thing to shoot for as far as like a pocket of new potential customers?
Well, it is a numbers game. So I always have 15 conversations with new prospects every month, because I know that out of 20 people I speak with, half of those are going to become opportunities, meaning that they are a good fit and they are interested in how I can help them. Out of those 10, about half will turn into proposals, and I'll close 1 out of 5 if I'm pricing correctly. So regardless of who I'm going after, I stick with those numbers. But I look at it as, a pocket might be okay. I understand that there are only so many agency owners with financial backgrounds. Now, my researchers are going to go out and they're going to try and guess how many are identifiable on the internet just by taking a pocket of agencies, how many have financial backgrounds. Okay, so let's say there's 200. How long is it going to take me to get through that pocket? Well, if I'm reaching out to 80 a month, it'll take, I'm bad at math, but three or so months. So I know that at the end of month 1, I'm going to have to start doing research. I'm going to have to start looking for another pocket. My niche, if you will, I'm commercially focused on helping marketing agencies and marketing consultants. But the subsets of those, I've probably targeted 50 different individual subsets of agencies or independent consultants. And it's all an experiment to me, but to train your mind and to get really good at those conversations, to your point, the best question people ask is, what have you done for someone like me lately? And so getting yourself in the mode of talking to something as detailed as agency owners under $5 million with financial backgrounds, you're going to get a lot of practice with that financial conversation. You're going to get that value proposition down. And at the end of that pocket, at the end of that 3 months, you're going to be able to say, okay, I know exactly what I can do if I choose to go after these financial background agency owners. I know the numbers, I know the value proposition, I know how many there are. Now I can go pursue another pocket. And I do think that is a limiting belief. Like there's not enough clients out there for me to have a viable business. I only work with 3 clients at a time. And the tenure is probably 3, and I work in quarterly engagements. So the tenure is probably 3 quarters. How many clients do I really need?
Just enough to make the numbers work.
Just enough to make the numbers work. Exactly. So, and there's usually enough. Like you're in a very rare scenario when there's not, 100 to 500 lookalikes of an ideal customer. You got to get pretty darn detailed. So I don't come across that often.
Okay. And even I imagine that if you were to get like almost too detailed, then that's a higher price.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. You're quick learner.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Your demand must remain above your capacity. That's where price premiums live.
Awesome. Powerful. This is all great to think about. And you always hear about, again, another cliche of like, well, your prospect should feel like you're reading their diary without them even realizing. And sometimes you're thinking of things that they haven't even considered or haven't even done yet. And so yeah, by pursuing this lookalike idea, that's an easy way to do it. And everything that you've mentioned here is very doable as far as living the lifestyle on your terms, and even like knowing your rough numbers, your rough math, knowing like, I need to talk to this number of people to get them into this bucket, to get them into that bucket. And that means that in order to keep the business growing, I need to have this pocket and work through the pocket in this amount of time. It's all like easy enough to wrap around your head, easy enough to know what your inputs and outputs are going to be. So this is a really awesome, amazing plan. And I want to make sure that in the next few minutes, we get to promoting you and your agency and your book and your website and all that fun stuff. But right before we get to that, Max, is there anything you feel like we left out of this conversation? Is there anything that we need to just stuff in the 11th hour to make sure that people really get a lesson to go home with? Anything come to mind?
Yeah. Grow is a really tough word for me. Like my original story, growing was revenue. Growing was the amount of clients. When we grew in that way, it was painful. And so any entrepreneur, or especially solo consultants that are independent consultants that are selling their knowledge and their time, they have to figure out what grow means to them. Go back to what do you want your personal life to look like? Grow for me, I'm making the money I want to make. I don't want to grow the amount of clients I work with. I don't want to grow the amount of money I'm making. I have no interest in that. What I want to grow is my personal time. So this year I'm taking 3 months off. Last year I took 6 weeks off. This year I'm taking 3 months off. I'll work January, February, March, take a month off, May, June, July, take a month off, and so on. Because I know that I want to play more golf. I want to hang out with my kids. I've defined growth for me in a way that I'm motivated to achieve it. You got to find that for yourself.
That is very good. I will be chewing on that all day today. What does growth mean for me? And so for those of us who want to grow in whatever term that means for us personally, what is the next step here? How do we, if we're intrigued, amazed, and turned on, and so much more of what you told us today, where do we go? What action do we take to kind of keep this conversation going?
Well, maxtrailer.com. Yeah, I try to make it simple. You do as well, Robert. That's where you can find me. That's where I hang out. That's where my podcast is. You can download a free copy of my book. If that speaks to you, I do small group workshops to keep my mental exercise going. It's my Productize workshops, the most valuable thing I do for clients. And I do it every 2 weeks for people that are thinking about this and want to make progress, because I love doing it. I find some clients doing that, and I need the mental exercise. So head over to maxtraylor.com. There's a little form there that says schedule a call with me. And if I think you're a good fit, you'll get an invite to the next workshop.
Okay. Well, let's hope that anyone who is the right person to take the next step with you is the right fit. And if you're listening to this podcast, which you are, then don't be the reason why Max fatigues on his mental exercise. Challenge him, keep his mental exercise going. The place to go is maxtraylor.com. That is maxtraylor.com. And we will see you there. And thanks, Max, for showing up and having a good time with me.
Cheers, Robert Plank.